Alright, this is Algebra 2 Notes, Lesson 9-3. I apologize that I am basically whispering. I'm recording this at 1 in the morning, and Riley is not quite a sound sleeper tonight. So today's date is Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. We are just talking about the location of degrees and radians. We have to have these memorized. So this is a very, very heavily memorization lesson. You can see that in our objective as well. We need to memorize the locations of important coordinates. There they are, I've listed them, on a unit circle in both degrees and radians. So, as I said, these are the things that you need to memorize. The reason that you're memorizing these coordinates in particular is because those are the ones that are going to correspond to special right triangles for the lesson tomorrow. And I might not have a lesson tomorrow if we need to spend more time memorizing this. It's super, super, super valuable if you're going to continue studying math in high school, in college, whatever, to have these memorized, especially if you're going to plan on going into AP Calculus. This radian location is very important. So today I'm changing up some things, and I apologize, but we don't really have formal Khan Academy homework or any worksheet homework. I realized kind of late that we needed to scaffold this even more, so we just needed to do some stuff on Quizlet. So tonight's homework is to work on these two things on Quizlet, and there's going to be some extra credit bonuses for people to get high scores. So after this lesson, so this is the one for radians, this is the one for the degrees, and you'd be like, okay, how many degrees is that? And you're like, oh yeah, that's clearly 30 degrees, and you can learn them that way. And eventually the competition, if we hit back here, the competition is going to be for the match activity. So how fast can you match the angles with the pictures? So is it clicking? Why is it not going? So let me see how fast I can go with my mouse. So that's 90 degrees, that's 180 degrees, 150 degrees. Nope. Oh man, it's 120 degrees. 150 degrees is this one. This is 315. This is 330. Okay, so you can very clearly beat my high score. I'll be playing this again because I need a review, obviously, as well. It's always a learning process. So, and then the radian one is slightly harder to do because you have to type them in. So this one you have to actually type in 5 pi over 3 and check your answer that way. All right, so let's get started with trying to memorize these. I am going to guess you're going to be looking at the unit circle quite a bit unless you're just going to follow along with the video, which it seems like most of us are going to do. But I really, really emphasize trying to think about it at least half a second before I'm doing it. So the first 8 here I want you to do in degrees. So this is going to be 30 degrees. This is going to be a full half a turn, so this is going to be 180 degrees. This is going to be on the very bottom, that's 270 degrees. Then this one, so the way I think about this one is I go 180 degrees and then backwards 30 degrees. So it's going to be 150 degrees. This one, so the kind of cool trick, whenever you're right in the middle, it's always going to end in 5, something with a 5. In this case, it's going to be 45 degrees. Over here, you can have 135. Down here, you'll have 225 or 315. So they'll always end in 5. This one is nice and easy. It's 90 degrees. This one, you can think of this as two things. You can either think of it as 0 degrees or 360 degrees. Both of them will work for that spot. This one is 135 degrees. And I realize that I might be making mistakes. If you catch those mistakes, please log them immediately in your extra credit tracker after checking with someone that it is indeed a mistake. I'll try to make at least 1 or 2 so you can get some extra credit. Let's do some in radians now. Oh man, again, a good review. So this is going to be pi over 3. And there are a lot of patterns that are happening in here. For example, with all the radians, the dividing by 3s are always going to be closer to this this y-axis. So check them out. All the 3s are going to be closest to that y-axis, and vice versa. All the divided by 6s are going to be closest to this x-axis. And then, of course, all the ones that are right in the middle are always going to be divided by 4. And you kind of have to count. You have to count how many of those there are. So I'm going 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So that's why that one's 3/4. So that's one of the patterns. There's many, many patterns to help you out here. So this is 5/4 pi, or 5 pi over 4. I'm thinking of thirds because thirds are closest to this y-axis, and I have 2/3 in this case, so 2 pi over 3. This one is in 6 because it's closest to this x-axis, so it's a little bit more than pi, so 7 pi over 6 is really close to pi. This one's right in the middle, so it's going to be something divided by 4. I know it's, if I did 8 pi over 4, that would be 2 pi, so a little bit less than 8 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4. This one down here is closest to this y-axis, so I'm thinking something divided by 3. It's 1/3 more than regular pi, so it needs to be 4 pi over 3, because 3 pi over 3 would have been right here. Moving down here, we have, it's closest to the y-axis, so it's going to be something divided by 3, and it's going to be 1 more than this last one. It was 4 pi over 3, so this one's going to be 5 pi over 3. And then finally, this one is going to be closest to the x-axis here, so it's going to be something divided by 6. And it's basically as close as I can get right here would be 12 over 6, because that's 2 pi. So a little bit less than that is 11 pi over 6. All right. And then we need to circle the correct point for each of these following measures, and I'm kind of alternating back and forth. So let's use black. So pi over 3 divided by 3 is closest to the y-axis, 240 degrees. Well, I'm thinking if it's 270 degrees is right here, minus 30 degrees. That must be 240. 5 pi over 4. Okay, I know it's one of these middle ones. So it can't be that one. It's too small. 5 pi over 4 must be that middle one. So there's 5 pi over 4. 300 degrees, it's really close to 360, but minus 60 degrees. So I'm going to come back down here, and that also makes sense because I have 270 plus 30 degrees, which is 300 degrees. By the way, each of these big measures is 30 degrees. Each of these small measures is 15 degrees, which means if I was very formal about this unit circle, I should have extra lines right here, and then I would have equal segments every 15 degrees, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90. I've just moved by 15 degrees. The reason I skip those is because they don't make special right triangles. Pi over 4, if it's ever divided by 4, it's going to be a middle, remember, so it's the smallest middle when there's pi over 4. 120 degrees, well, there's 90, and I'm going to add another 30 degree slice, so 120 is right there. Pi over 2 is straight up. 30 degrees is the smallest one available to us. Pi, we know pi is straight out to the left. 150 degrees, that's really close to 180 degrees, but minus this 30 degree slice. So 150 degrees is right here. 7 pi over 4, so it's like, okay, it's either this one or this one, because divided by 4 is one of the middle paths. So 5 pi over 4 was this one. I just did that back up here somewhere, right? So it has to be the next one, 7 pi over 4. Another way of thinking about that is it's really close to 8 pi over 4, which is 2 pi right here. So it's a little bit less than that. It must be in that fourth quadrant. 210 degrees. So it's really close to 180, and then adding 30 degrees to get 210. So there's 210. 5 pi over 3. So if it's divided by 3, it's closest to this, closest to the y-axis. I was thinking y, but I was underlining x. And 5 pi over 3 is going to be this one, because this is 4 pi over 3, which I've done before. Another way of thinking about this is it's really close to 6 pi over 3, which is right here, and a little bit less than that. It's still going to be in that fourth quadrant. 135 degrees. Oh, it ends in a 5, so it's probably this one or this one. It's less than 180, so it has to be this one right here. 4 pi over 3, very similar to 5 pi over 3, just going backwards a third. And it is in that third quadrant because it's slightly more than slightly more than 3 pi over 3. It's 4 pi over 3. 3 pi over 3 would have been right there. And finally, for the notes, we have 315 degrees, which is going to be right here because it's 45 degrees away from 360. So there's a lot of tricks, a lot of patterns, but it's hugely, hugely memorization. So now that you've finished the notes, you need to come and learn them with the flashcards. So after you do these flashcards like this for the radians, or come back here, hit back. Well, I'm not going to show you, but I just do the flashcards for both the radians and for the degrees. The flashcards here, learn them as well as you can, and then after you learn them, do the match activity to get a high score. I don't know if it's going to be top 3 or top 5 people are going to get extra credit. We can discuss that when I'm back, but be looking out to get really high scores on these, please. That concludes today's notes. See you guys around.